Am I the jerk for dressing too elegantly for a wedding when I was simply being myself? Hello, everyone. Long-time reader, first-time poster here. I'm a 25-year-old woman, and a few months ago, I attended a friend's wedding. The couple getting married were Matt, 25, and Susan, 25. We're all part of a large friend group that generally gets along well. To give some context, I had never been to a wedding before in my life. I also don't usually dress up or wear makeup, not because I have anything against it, but because it's costly and time-consuming. I also work 16-hour shifts in a uniform. So, when I got the wedding invitation, I was thrilled. I saved up and went to a boutique that carried my size, as I'm fairly tall. The salesperson was fantastic, super helpful and enthusiastic. He picked out several dresses that were appropriate for a wedding, but not too similar to what the bridal party would be wearing. We had a great time trying on outfits, and he really hyped me up. One particular dress caught my eye, a stunning dark green silk bias cut gown. Think Keira Knightley in Atonement, but without the sash and with a flowing skirt. We paired it with heels, and I had never felt more beautiful. The dress was even on sale, which was a major bonus. The wedding day arrived, and it was absolutely lovely. I was so happy for my friends. However, Susan completely ignored me, which felt odd, but I assumed she was just busy with all the preparations. Once the ceremony and reception were in full swing, I didn't dwell on it. Everything went smoothly. The couple left for their honeymoon, and the night ended without a hitch. I suppose it's worth mentioning that I received several compliments on my outfit throughout the event. However, I didn't think my dress was anything overly extravagant, nor did I feel like I was drawing too much attention. I made sure to compliment others as well, so I didn't think I stood out. Nothing was said about it until tonight, when we all got together for a welcome-back dinner for Matt and Susan. During the meal, Susan kept making passive-aggressive remarks about my outfit from the wedding. It was painfully obvious that she thought I had overdressed. I didn't say anything at the time because I felt awful, and none of our mutual friends intervened or stopped her. Looking back, I can't shake the feeling of being wronged. She didn't give me the benefit of the doubt, and I truly don't believe my dress was over the top. Perhaps I looked drastically different from my usual appearance, which could have played a role in her reaction. 2 days later, things took an unexpected turn. Apparently, the dress itself wasn't the real issue. It was just a trigger for something deeper. I'm still trying to make sense of it all, as I've been getting bits of information from different sources. Some directly, some secondhand. Friends have reached out via text, and I even spoke with Susan on the phone. Here's the backstory. I grew up in a fairly toxic environment, not the absolute worst, but far from ideal. Adding to that, I have religious trauma that made me wary of relationships. I don't casually date or have flings, and I'm a staunch atheist. Others can believe whatever they choose, but faith isn't for me. So, how does this tie into everything? Well, Matt is deeply religious, not in a preachy way, but it's a fundamental part of his life. He wants to become a pastor. A decade ago, when we were teenagers, he asked me to a school dance. At the time, we barely knew each other, but I declined because my parents didn't allow me to attend such events. He then asked if we could date, and I gently turned him down. Firstly, because my parents wouldn't have permitted it, and secondly, because I already knew I didn't want a religious lifestyle. Since Matt was devout, I knew we were incompatible. That was 10 years ago. We weren't even friends back then. Our friendship only developed later, when my best friend started dating one of the guys in Matt's friend group, and our social circles merged. Over the years, Matt dated other people, and while it was a bit awkward at first, I hardly ever thought about it. We were 15 after all. Fast forward, Matt started dating Susan, and she and her friends joined our group. Everything seemed fine. We got along well, though we weren't particularly close. There was occasional drama, but I was usually too caught up with university and work to get involved. Apparently, at some point, Matt told Susan that he had once asked me out. I have no idea if he specified when this happened, but it definitely bothered her. I was completely oblivious to this. And yes, some of you guessed correctly, Susan is insecure, and she also struggles with anxiety. Here's where things get messy. Whenever Susan had anxious episodes and called Matt in distress, he would be supportive in the moment, but afterward, he would compare her to me, saying things like, "You should be more like my name. She doesn't stress over things like this." Why would he say that? That's incredibly unfair. Let's be real. Being followed by a creep on a train is a completely different experience from whatever random worries I've learned to manage. When you're 6 feet tall and trained in martial arts versus when you're barely 5 feet 1 inch and struggle with anxiety, it's nerve-wracking either way, terrifying all the time. But can you really fault her for breaking down in tears? Apologies, but I'm a bit frustrated. I assumed she harbored some form of resentment toward me, but never voiced it. Once again, I was completely unaware of any of this. So what happens? He proposes. They decide to postpone the wedding a little longer. She sends out invitations. And I find out I'm not part of the bridal party. Honestly, we were never that close, so I wasn't particularly affected. Perhaps a twinge of sadness, but her bridal party is massive, filled with women she's more connected with. So I didn't take it personally. My best friend was somewhat aware of the underlying tensions due to her boyfriend. Yes, the same guy mentioned earlier. She and Susan don't get along well and had a disagreement around this time, completely unrelated to the wedding. In response, Susan uninvited her. My friend didn't care much since she was going to be out of the country anyway. Susan also removed a few other girls from the bridal party, apparently because they were gossiping about her relationship. I only heard about this third hand, so my knowledge is limited. From what I can piece together from my conversation with Susan, she somehow interpreted my question about the bridal party's attire as an insult. She assumed I intentionally wore green to stand out against the bridal party, and that I deliberately chose it because her dress had red accents, opposite colors on the spectrum. She never asked me about it, just came to this conclusion by herself. On top of that, she's utterly convinced that I dress so elegantly to entice Matt, and that I should have chosen something more modest. I asked why she was bringing all this up now, and why she hadn't addressed it with me earlier. I could have easily reassured her that nothing ever happened between Matt and me, nor would it ever. That's when she dropped the real bombshell. During their honeymoon, he confessed to having doubts. He told her he felt like I was the one who got away, and that he needed to pray over their marriage. They haven't separated, but things have been tense and difficult between them. When we saw each other at dinner, all of her anger and frustration came flooding back. She didn't explicitly say this, but it wasn't hard to infer. Not long after I left that dinner, mutual friends started reaching out to me. Apparently, after talking to them, she began shaming me pretty harshly, assuming they'd take her side. When they didn't, she got furious and has been distant with everyone ever since. At this point, I tried to assure Susan that there was genuinely nothing between Matt and me. I honestly have no idea what he's thinking, but she completely lost it, screaming, crying, cursing at me through the phone, calling me horrible names. I attempted to de-escalate, but she was too hysterical to listen, so I just hung up. What else was I supposed to do in that situation? I sent her a text saying, "I'm really sorry you're going through this. You don't deserve to be treated this way, but I don't deserve this treatment either. When you're ready, I'd like to have a respectful, face-to-face conversation." She read it, but didn't respond. I haven't reached out to Matt because, frankly, I'm unnerved and absolutely livid. I have no idea what to say, and I don't particularly want to be anywhere near him right now. I doubt this is the end of it, and if anything else unfolds, I might update again because writing all this out has actually been quite cathartic. One commenter suggested they should just annul the marriage and go their separate ways. My response? Unfortunately, they barely missed a deadline for annulment, meaning they'd have to be separated for a year before filing for divorce. I'm not sure they'd even consider it, given their strong religious beliefs. While their denomination doesn't outright forbid divorce, it strongly discourages it, especially considering Matt's aspirations to become a pastor. That being said, I completely agree that their marriage seems doomed. Another commenter reassured me that I'm not the villain in this situation and encouraged me to have that face-to-face conversation when she's ready. They suggest I clarify that when Matt asked me out, I was just 15, meaning I was never the one that got away, because we never even dated. I only asked about the dress colors to make sure I wasn't matching the bridal party. a completely normal wedding inquiry. I should also emphasize that our friendship only developed later due to overlapping social circles, not because either of us actively sought the other out. If given the opportunity, I'll explain everything I've shared here. They also recommended I keep my distance from Matt until they figure things out, which I fully intend to do. None of this is my fault. Honestly, from what I've gathered, it seems like he settled rather than truly feeling that spark with her, especially given what he told her on their honeymoon. And really, who says something like that to their newlywed spouse? If I ever get a chance to speak with Susan again, I'll let her know that I'm choosing to cut ties with Matt, or at the very least, only interact with him in group settings where she's present. He clearly has his own issues to work through, as we all do, but it's completely unacceptable for him to compare his wife to other women. This entire situation has left me feeling disgusted, upset, and incredibly uncomfortable. More than anything, I feel bad for Susan. I'm still trying to figure out when, or if I should reach out again. But honestly, even with all the explanations in the world, it won't fix the fundamental problem here. I hope this all makes sense. This mess has completely drained me.